Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special talk. So, we're just going to take 1 minute to let everyone trickle in. So, while we're waiting, if you want to put in the chat where you're from, so we know where everyone is joining from, and if you want to mention, if you're a meditator or if you haven't learned TM yet and you're exploring what it is. So it'd be great to see where people are joining from and their background. We've got Ontario, BC. Wonderful. And I see some familiar names popping up too. Hello, everyone. I'm joining from Vancouver. My name is Aisha, and I help run the Vancouver TM Center here. So I'm joining from the West Coast. Bit of a cloudy, wet day today compared to the East Coast, which I hear you're just cooking out there right now. All right. Oh, we've got Okanagan. Wonderful. Great to have you all. Okay. So today's a very special talk. Today we're going to be talking about how transcendental meditation is a tool to help us grow towards higher states of consciousness, which we might also refer to as enlightenment, self-actualization, self-realization. And so today we'll go more and explore what these terms actually mean. What does enlightenment even mean? And also how this experience is explained by science, and also research that shows how TM is a tool that helps us to get there. So essentially, today we're really going to be exploring the science of enlightenment, which is a really exciting topic. And today we have a wonderful guest speaker who will be joining us. So we're welcoming Dr. Paul Gagné. So welcome, Dr. Gagné. So I just want to take a minute to introduce you to everyone. So Dr. Gagné is a medical doctor and former assistant professor in the Faculty of Medicine at McGill University in Montreal. And he has been a prolific speaker on maternity care and the scientific research on transcendental meditation, including its application in education and stress management. And on top of all of that, he has 30 years of experience in clinical practice, teaching, and research. So welcome, Dr. Gagné. We're very excited for this topic today. So to start off, I was wondering if you wanted to just give us a little bit of your own background with TM and how you started your own personal journey.
Yes, thank you very much, Asia. Well, my history with TM, it dates back from long time ago, somewhere around 1979, 1980. I was a young physician then, and I went for TM because of a research paper that I read. It's a research paper in a well-known medical magazine, and it said that TM is very good for relieving stress and it's help for sleep and it gives a deep rest. So I was a bit overworked, during my training. I was being trained as a gynecologist then, and I had to do night calls and day and night work, and even after a night of work, very often I had to go for my clinics during the day. So that was a bit crazy. So I went there, and I must say briefly that after I learned TM, the results were spectacular. The relief of fatigue and stress, and my ability to face, all the emergencies and all the situations unpredictable and so on. It was a magic effect, but during my introduction, when I went to the TM Center in Montreal, and after reading this article, and the TM teacher told me, he told, we were a bunch of people, having this talk, and he told us, you know, we usually think that there is only three states of consciousness, like dreaming, sleeping, and waking. But in fact, according to an ancient Vedic knowledge, there are seven states of consciousness. And then he said there is transcendental consciousness, there is cosmic consciousness, and God consciousness, and unity consciousness. When he said that, me, I was a physician with 5, 6 years of training, and I was never told that there was anything else than the three states of consciousness, except some abnormal one like coma and delusion and stuff like this, all the bad one. But never anybody in all my reading and story and studying of medicine, I never came across a situation where consciousness could actually be improved. It could be consciousness was an extendable thing. So it just I was very interested by this concept, and immediately I wanted to know more about this because you see, usually you hear about these things about enlightenment and so on, and it's usually spoken in the terms of mystical or metaphysical or even religious principles. So, in the scientific world during at that time, it wasn't considered relevant or something like that or possible. But I very quickly realized I've been following the scientific research on TM ever since. And I quickly realized that we were missing a big part, even in medicine, a big part of the reality of consciousness and the human potential that could be increased. And eventually, the conclusion is, having looked at the research and everything, that it seems like TM is the practice of transcendental meditation is the way to improve the stage of consciousness, and there is nothing else that can do it. So anyway, during the talk, this is going to be the topic. I want to take you through the first few studies that when psychologists became to realize that there were different levels of consciousness and analyze them, and then RTM can make a big difference, and then eventually, so this is studies science in psychology, but then it became science in neurophysiology. Because as a physician, I needed to make sure that this is grounded in reality and research. It's not like mood making or some metaphysical stuff. So I'm going to be very happy to discuss that with you today. Um,
So, Dr.
Another
Gagné,
word
just
for
quickly,
I.
Dr. Gagné,
Yeah, go ahead, Asia.
just quickly that today, just so everyone understands what's happening, is that we're not actually going to learn transcendental meditation today. We're going to talk about how TM really helps us, the science of how TM really helps us grow towards these higher values and what these higher states, how they're defined by science. And so I just wanted to quickly mention that if anyone is actually interested in learning transcendental meditation, you haven't learned yet and you're interested in how to do that, the next step to do that would be to attend one of our free discovery sessions, one of our free preparatory sessions. And so we'll really cover that at the end, but we'll put a link in the chat now to those sessions. So that way, if you have to leave early, you have access to those next talks that are upcoming. So before we dive in, I just wanted to quickly mention that. So Nuar just put that in the chat for us. So yeah, take it away, Dr. Gagné. I just wanted to quickly mention that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Asia. Well, yeah, this is kind of a very deep subject. You see, in the ancient Vedic science, they also we say higher states of consciousness, enlightenment, but I think it's in Sanskrit terms, they call it moksha. Huh? And moksha, what it means is liberation. It's another way. Liberation from what? Because you can say, well, liberation, what does it mean? Liberation from what? It's actually liberation from all limitations, all limitations. That's also very it's a bit of a you put the bar very high, huh, when we speak about higher states of consciousness. But in at that time, in for me as a young physician in 19, there was it's doesn't sound like didn't sound like something possible. But over time, we have now enough data and science to realize that this is feasible, easily feasible. It's not complicated. Actually, the most important person here today is Asia, because if she's a TM teacher, she's the one able to teach you how to do it. Me, I'm just going to tell you how it works scientifically. But anyway, so we get there. I'll just show you some slides, and then we will. Okay, gain higher states of consciousness with TM. Okay, that's the topic. But when we speak about consciousness, this is a big question, because even then, in 1980, when I heard about higher states of consciousness, first of all, consciousness, it wasn't known scientifically. Everybody knows what consciousness is. It's like your way of having experience and, dealing with the world and everything. But there was no science behind this. Actually, in modern medicine, there was not much science. Many scientists, actually are shy or talking about consciousness, because it's kind of a weird metaphysical thing, and nobody's very was kind of sure what it is. And it happened that over time, I discovered that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of TM, was the greatest scientist of consciousness. He kept talking about this all his life. And then he was followed by Dr. Tony Nader. And I think if we want to define consciousness, I took a little quote from Dr. Nader's book, the latest book. And it's consciousness is all there is. Okay. And he says like this, just to summarize: nothing is more intimate and central to life, to our human life, than our consciousness. It is impossible to imagine having any experience without consciousness. If you're not conscious, there's nothing happening. It's like all your perception, all your thoughts, emotion, insight, memory, planning, all depend on consciousness. Everything depends on consciousness. If you lose consciousness, it's like there is not much happening. And it is then the one fundamental element at the basis of all we experience and everything we do. So that's basically this. And I think Dr. Nader is probably on Earth now the living, the most scientist of consciousness, the best available. So it's very interesting to see his many. You will see many talk that he gave and books that he wrote about this subject, and it's very nice. But back in the 80s, Maharishi was there, and he said this. That was quite a bold statement for this time. And he said, he was the first one to speak about spirituality in terms of science. Okay, spirituality in terms of science. And I like this quote because it's going to be all about the speech that we're going to give you today. Every experience has its level of physiology, and so unbounded consciousness. Quote this expression: unbounded consciousness has its own level of physiology, which can be measured. Okay, we will be talking about measurement all along, until the end of the talk. It's going to be all about measurement. How can we measure this? When we talk of scientific measurement, it does not take away from the spiritual experience. We are not responsible for those times when spiritual experience was thought of as metaphysical or spiritual or religious or whatever you can add to this. Everything is physical. It's kind of tough, huh? Because you see, even the most spiritual experience and the great sensation that we have, feel some people feel they can communicate with God or something like this. It's all physical. So this is our understanding of spirituality. It is not on the level of faith. It's measurable. So we will speak about these measure. Right? That's a big topic that we're gonna speak. And if we say it's all physical, it means then spirituality does not exist in itself, or consciousness is only physical? Not exactly. So that's another big question. If you see, we should not conclude that consciousness is only physical, because of course you need the physical brain to have consciousness. But anyway, in the work of Dr. Nader, you realize very quickly that you need your consciousness, your brain to have consciousness, but you need consciousness to have a brain. There is only consciousness actually, but that's another topic. We won't go in this way. This is a more difficult. You have to uh, pause over that a little bit more before you understand quickly. But actually, both are the same. So it does not remove spirituality and materialistic. It's the same. Okay. One interesting research that I saw very recently, that was in 2020, that this article came out about the brain network compared to the cosmic web. Okay, this is a comparison between the two, and it was done by a neurosurgeon and a psychologist. They came together, and or a neurosurgeon and an astrophysician, actually, I think astrophysics. Anyway, so they came together and shared their experience of the brain and then the cosmos, and they mapped the whole thing. And what they found is that, amazingly, the brain has the same mapping system as the universe. And this is mind-boggling, but they did compare, the two. And also what they said that the structure is very, very much alike, the same. And they also, through some kind of a calculation that I don't understand completely myself, but apparently in cosmology, they look at the complexity of a system, and they can evaluate the amount of information that this system contains. Because, if in order to have this kind of complexity, it has to have some order in it, like laws that help keep it together and everything. So it's in order of trillions and trillions of gigabyte or something like this. It's impossible also to imagine the number, but they found that the same amount of information is in the brain. So that's very mind-boggling. So actually, the brain is a cosmic organ, kind of. And some other scientists now are just developing this concept and say actually the the universe has is conscious, and the same way, because they look the same. So anyway, we won't go any further in this. We look at the measurement maybe more. But before we go into TM and higher states of consciousness, I want to make sure that we all understand that meditations are not all the same, because now we're talking about transcendental meditation, but there are many other meditations. When I started TM in the 80s, there was not much. I remember looking through different ways that TM was the only available technique that I could take. So I went there. So I have no merit from taking TM. But today you have a choice between all sorts of techniques that you can use. They're called meditations, but they don't have the same effect. Okay. So It's only it's so much so that in the 90s there was a big confusion in scientific research about meditation, and then people were publishing research and results of meditation without even saying what kind of meditation they were practicing. So it became like a mess, a little bit. So it's only in 2010 that the scientific community came together, and finally they said, let's make it clear that there are three types of meditation, and they're classified according to the cognitive control they involve. You see, briefly, that you have concentration technique, which is focused attention. It's more like focused attention. It's Tibetan meditation more, and you have open monitoring. It's like more Chinese meditation. It's more like mindfulness and vipassana and other techniques like this. So you see, concentration techniques, they need a lot of concentration. You have to work a lot with your cognitive process. The mind has to fix something. So when you practice that kind of meditation, you're working. You have something to do, some work. When you do open monitoring, it's less, but you still have, an observation, it's a contemplation kind of meditation. You have to pay attention to what is going on in your mind, some noise in your body or some noise in the environment or whatever. You have to be always aware of the moment. So you put yourself into observation. So it's not as bad as concentration, but it is still your attention is on something. Okay. The third kind of meditation is automatic transcending, and this is where TM is. And during TM, you have no effort. It's completely natural. I think I'm going to ask Asia to explain that very soon, but it's very, very natural. You don't have to, you're not looking for any results, and you're not watching, and you're not concentrating. Not at all. So, having read the scientific literature about all these many articles about these different kind of meditation, I can tell you that all the good effect of TM are derived from the fact that they're effortless. This is effortless technique, natural. You don't have to do anything. So then the body takes over your brain and then start to improve itself. You're not asking anything. So naturally the mind goes and heal itself, kind of. Aisha will explain that. But you see, this was done. It was not like done just like by chance here. There was really research showing this. This is here the electroencephalographic tracing, electric activity of the brain during these kind of meditation. The focused attention meditation, the one that you have to concentrate, it's a very active and very dense activity, electric activity of the brain, because the brain is just working very hard. And it's working outside, it's outward looking. Okay. Open monitoring is also outward looking, unfortunately, because it doesn't have the effect of TM because it's outward. And there is another kind of brain activity, electric brain activity. It's very different. It's theta wave, and it's more like you're evaluating, you're watching, you're looking at what's going on around and everything like this. You're paying attention to everything around. With TM, you have alpha activity. This is the activity of electric activity of restful electric activity of the brain, because now the mind is looking inward. You're not looking outward. And this inward march of the mind makes the whole difference. All the measurement and the thing I will explain later during this presentation is due to this inward march. If you don't have this, and the TM teacher, his role is to teach you how to do this. It's easy. You get it very quickly, but you have to have a teacher to do it. You cannot learn that in a book or or the video and everything, or listening to music or something like that. If you listen to music, you're outward. Okay. So usually when you go to learn TM, the teacher will explain you this. This is some kind of a representation of what the mind does during TM. So I'll let Asia describe this for us. Go ahead, Asia.
Thank you, Dr. Gagné. So, when we describe transcendental meditation and how it works, we use this analogy of the ocean and we compare the ocean to our mind. So, the ocean is very active on the surface. So, you have that active level of the ocean, all those waves, all of that activity. And then, naturally, below the surface of the ocean, it's more quiet and more silent at the depths. And so we use this analogy to compare with our mind. So the mind is also very active on the surface. We have that active level of the mind, that conscious thinking level of the mind, and that's where we spend our days on that, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to call my mom, I got to go buy groceries, I got to take my dog for a walk, all these things. That's where we spend our days on that active thinking level of the mind, which is very normal. That is how we live our life on that conscious level of the mind. Now, the mind does have more silent, more settled depths of the mind in the same way that the ocean does. Below that active thinking level of the mind, it's more quiet and more silent at the depths. And so, with transcendental meditation, the mind naturally settles down and we start to experience these finer, quieter, more settled levels of thinking. And then the mind even transcends and goes beyond that most subtle level of thought to experience the source of thought, which is the most settled level of the mind. And this is an experience of pure consciousness or pure awareness. And when we say consciousness or pure awareness, it's a different kind of consciousness than what we're experiencing right now, for example, which is an outer awareness. Our awareness is drawn outwards through our senses, through our eyes, through our ears, through touch, through smell. Whereas this experience of pure consciousness, this is an inner experience of ourself without any external factors involved. And so in transcendental meditation, the mind settles down to this level. And this experience, this state of pure consciousness, it's also referred to by scientists as a field of consciousness, which underlies all other fields of life. Like we have the gravitational field and the electromagnetic field, all these fields of energy that support our relative life. And underneath all of that, there is a unified field of intelligence and energy, and that unified value is that field of consciousness that the mind settles down to, which is the source of our intelligence, our creativity, and all of our organizing power. And so that's that state that we're experiencing in transcendental meditation. And that's also what we're defining as a state which is different than our three relative states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and sleeping. So, Dr. Gagné, back to you to elaborate more on that, on the science of it all.
Yeah, this pure consciousness, uh, now because psychologists and physiologists they gave different names to it. Like Asia says, it's a field. But in psychology, in the early days of higher states of consciousness, they were referring at this as the self. It's like on top of it's your small self having all these thoughts and everything. And then when you transcend, you go to a bigger self, like the self. I'm saying this because in the next slides you will hear about self-realization, self improvement, and self, but it means or ego. Huh? This is like the small ego is here and the big ego is there. Ego with a big I. So anyway, so that these are all expressions that the scientists use, so that you have to get familiar with this. But this experience of transcending is unique. You can, if you don't use the inner march of the mind, you don't transcend, and then you don't have the result. So let's say there is a measurement of that, because everything that Asia says it's nice, it sounds good, but do we have any proof that if I close my eyes and I start transcending inward march of the mind, that there will be something different? Like Asia said, transcendental consciousness. It's a new type of consciousness that did not exist before. And you see, even me, when I learned TM in the 80s, they said transcendental consciousness. What is this? But now, we have brain imaging that shows what it does. When you transcend, you have this image in your brain. The red is when it's red on the brain imaging, it's increased activity, and the blue is decreased activity. So basically, in a nutshell, when you transcend, the upper brain, the thinking brain, is more active. It goes, it heal itself, reconnect itself, and I'll show you later what it does. But anyway, it's very active. While the body, because the lower part of the brain, it's like what drives your body, like blood pressure, sugar level, breathing rates, temperature, everything automatic that you never have to think about it goes by itself. Digestion, elimination, everything like this works by itself. You don't have to think. Even if you think and you want to control it, won't work. So it's really the automatic pilot of your body is the lower part. So the lower part of the body becomes very, very restful, okay? And the higher part of the brain become very active. So it's a peculiar, somewhat paradoxical situation because usually both go together. Now they're separate. Okay, it's called restful alertness. Okay, it's unique to TM. No other technique, no other anything else you try to do, you won't be able to have this image. And many physicians and researchers have tried to find this pattern in other situations. Nobody was able to find it. It's unique to TM. So this is this unique aspect of restful alertness, the experience of transcending. Okay, it will give all the best, the good results that we saw after. And I have an example of this, a quick example, but not so quick, maybe. Okay, this is it's nice. I always use it because I find it describes very well what restful alertness is. In the US, they have an epidemic of high blood pressure on teenage. They're young, and because sometime of their socioeconomic status or racial problems and everything, they have high blood pressure. They're very young. They're very young, and then instead of giving them pills for the rest of their life, and if you want to prevent any cardiovascular problem in the future, a researcher decided to try TM. So anyway, it's very well known that TM is good for high blood pressure. So they went ahead and do it. So this is the graph on the left side here. You see the graph here. It just shows that the blood pressure after 4 months of TM, the blood pressure of these that was compared to the control group is the dotted line. The solid line is the TM. TM is much lower after 4 months of TM. So results were good. And even they came back 8 months after 8 months, and the blood pressure was still low. So that's also kind of reassuring that they had some kind of reboot the system, that the effect will be a long-term effect. So that's restful of the body. See, the body change its automatic pilot into the better working automatic pilot instead of working in stress, it was working calmly and then blood pressure went down. But what is nice about these studies is that in the same population during these 8 months, they also check the behavior of the student, and they found that on the same population, there was a beneficial effect on TM on absenteeism, rule infraction, and suspension rate. It sounds like trivial thing, but there's nothing on earth that will change this quickly on education. I mean, if you were an educator or even a physician, you ask somebody to stop smoking or stop drinking or making better habits and everything. You keep telling them and telling them and telling. It's very hard to change an habit. So, so that's what happened is that this is the alertness. The brain started to connect better between parts of the brain. And then these students, they suddenly, or not so suddenly, after 4, 8 months, realized that going to school is not so bad. It's good for my future. Okay. And then they started to be more frequently there in school. And then they had less rule infraction, meaning that they realized that it's crazy to break the rule. You have to live in the school and doing this and this and this. Okay. So they realized this. They had less suspension. So it's very good. They became very better students. They became very better citizens. But okay, what happened? If you ask them, how come now you want to go to school more regularly than before? They wouldn't have they would have answered probably, well, I decided so. You see, in the past, they knew that school was good for them, and then they have to follow the rules because they were told by the teacher, they were told by their parents, they were told by everybody, the church, and everyone you can imagine. They were told this, but still they wouldn't do it, or not always. And then all of a sudden, they decided to do so. Okay? That's a bit of moksha, liberation. It's liberation from outside rules, and then you decide your own rules, and you're inspired to do the rule properly. Okay? So for them, they will say, these schools, they say, I decided so. I did that. It's not something I knew, they've been telling me, but now I decided I do it. So freedom is not necessarily you do anything like crazy, but freedom is you decide what to do. But in order to do it properly, what you decide, you have to have proper functioning of the brain. So this is what I mean by enlightenment. You work, you live in light. You don't live by what people say around you. In order to do this, you have to have a fully functioning brain and a deep sense of, I would say, inspiration. You have to. It's like intuition. It comes from inside. And then if you ask the kid, where did you take this? That you should go now and you didn't do it before. They'll tell you they don't know. It came from them inside. And the practice of TM, that's what it does. Okay? It does all good because we could spend hours and hours about the health benefit of TM on the body. But on the mind, it's more like a psychological change. So that's why the psychologists, they were the first to pick this up. Like the first one was Maslow, it is a famous now psychologist in the 60s and the 70s. And he spoke about conventional and post-conventional stage of development. Okay. Uh, Now it's all the wording of semantic of the psychologist, but to make it a simple thing, is conventional stage development is the usual one, the one that pretty much everyone reach during his life, okay? It's ordinary. The post-conventional one is the one that is not so common, and actually I could call it extraordinary. You have the ordinary stage of mind, stage of personality, stage of development, and you can go to extraordinary. So without knowing, Maslow was describing enlightenment. In the 60s, it's not about TM, Maslow was just looking at people And then with a questionnaire and all of these psychometric evaluations, psychometric tests, he would evaluate people. And he found that very rarely, half a percent of population were post-conventional. Everyone else were conventional. And he started to look to say, what, how can we get people to go from conventional to post-conventional? Okay. So ego development tend to grow during childhood. So that's another discovery. Huh? They were a bit disappointed because it's kind of stopped after adolescence around age 18. So I have a bad news for you, because if you have regular education and regular, evolution of life, you get stuck around age 20. And after that, this you build your life on the moral reasoning and then the capacity of intuition and everything that you've developed during your teens. It's like crazy, but this is it, okay? And beyond this point, it generally remains stable or even decline over time. So that's bad news, huh? Unless you take TM, that's another thing. Okay, reaching the level of ego development required for self-actualization. Maslow spoke about self-actualization, but self-actualization, I'll show you in another slide. This is enlightenment, actually. This is what it is, or moksha, liberation. Okay? Only about half a 1% of adults reach the highest level of development stage corresponding to self-actualization. Okay, so now what is it? Self-actualization. Okay? Self-actualization, it says, it's described by Maslow in 1968. It's only in psychological study because he had found these people, rare people with very high development of the self, okay? The individual has differentiated himself from the role and expectation of authorities. I just told you an example with the kids. Huh? Moral values are defined in terms of inner chosen principles. This is freedom. You drive your life properly. You're not making mistake from your own level. You don't have somebody. So self-realization, okay? This is what they mean by this, huh? In psychology, this is psychological autonomy with greater access to feeling and intuition. Follow me, because at the end, we're going to see neuro scientifically in how we do this, how we get access to feeling and intuition in a way that you stop making mistake. Okay, you don't make mistake in your life. This is the student, they just after 4 months, 4 months of TM, they had started to do less mistake. It's very quick. Huh? It's very quick. And you need a greater integration of cognition and affect and resilience to stress. You see, resilience to the enemy number one to self-realization is stress. And then it means that stress is a big thing. And you see, developing higher states of consciousness, it gave better resilience to stress. And there is plenty of research about TM and resilience to stress. I gave presentation about this very often. Anyway, so this is it. So then in 1991, I followed this. When I saw this paper, I was totally amazed. And I went back, I had read it about 25 years ago. So now I read it again about a month ago, a couple of weeks ago. Alexander is also a psychologist at Maharishi International University. And what he did is that he looked at Maslow's principle of self-realization, because he had seen this kind of people. They're rare, but what are they doing? How are they living? What are their way of dealing with reality, inner experience and outer experience, and blah blah blah. Anyway, so he had all this big book of principles, and Alexander he took all and clustered them into the level of consciousness that TM is teaching. TM, Transcendental Consciousness, Cosmic Consciousness, Refined Cosmic Consciousness, or commonly called God Consciousness, and Unity Consciousness. And Maslow, without knowing, had find characteristic of these states of consciousness in his very rare people that he had. He was studying them. So let's say TC, transcendental consciousness, a state of ego transcendence, like Asia explained to us, is beyond time and space, because when you're there, you're not outward, you're completely inward. And then pure consciousness is kind of looking at itself, it's infinite. So it's outside of the subject object divide. It's like there is no subject and object, it's like the same. Okay,
Can
pure
I add some,
consciousness.
can I add something, Dr.
Yeah,
Gagné?
yeah, go.
I just wanted to add to that when we say transcend, the word transcend means to go beyond. And so this experience is something that's beyond time, beyond space, beyond thought, beyond boundaries as well. So it's this fully expanded experience of consciousness. And so when we describe this experience as transcendental consciousness or pure consciousness, then it's this experience beyond thought and beyond these limitations of boundaries like time and space. And so that's the um, subjective experience. And then, as Dr. Gagné has been talking about too, there's the objective measurements of these experiences as well. So I just wanted to add that
Yes.
in.
Yeah, thank you very much, Asha. Yeah, because you see, this expanded, it's like the second slide or third slide I saw at the beginning where they discovered that the human brain and the cosmos is pretty much the same. So if you experience the full functioning of the brain, it is infinite like the cosmos. It's another way of seeing it. Anyway, so then Alexander kept going and said, cosmic consciousness, what were Maslow's principles showing this experiment? He said, and these are words from Maslow, that a serene existence in the realm of being, maintaining calm amidst chaos, characterized by non-interference and self-sufficiency, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you see, it's also amazingly described CC, like cosmic consciousness that usually comes from Vedic science. Refined cosmic consciousness, appreciation of all being, both living and non-living, as beautiful and inspiring, evoking reverence, love, and appreciation. It is seeing beauty. And one of the things that you experience when you learn TM at the beginning, very early, everything is more beautiful. Everything is more beautiful. This is, you see, and it makes life worth living because you appreciate it more. I've been meditating for 40 years now, and I was looking with my patients sometime, and to even people I met, and find that they had everything, but they never appreciate it. So that it's like going through your life without really living it. Okay. So that's refined consciousness. Then unity consciousness, comprehensive view of cosmos as a unified whole. And we seek brain and cosmos and everything. You see now there is a link between the two, huh? While still recognizing fine distinction. You don't lose track of the detail because you're not like floating in the empty space. You're still on Earth, but with the unified self seen as underlying all creation. Anyway, you have to realize all this beauty that there is there. It's available to everyone. And the way to go there is TM. Okay, it's transcending. And I'll show you the measurement of that now. Okay, measurement of that. Uh, Next thing is, you see, this is still Alexander in 1991. He wanted to know the effect of TM compared to the effect of other type of relaxation and meditation on students. So what he did, he used Shostrom Personal Orientation Inventory Score, POI. I mean, you can forget about the name, but what it is, it's another pen and paper test that you can measure the amount of self-actualization that the person has, okay? And this Shostrom personal inventory, it has many aspects to it, but there's three aspects that take you post-conventional into self-realization. It's affective maturity, integration perspective of self, and resilience of self. I won't go to the detail, but you understand that scientific measurement. So what they did is did scientific measurement in 1966 on 200 and 132 students practicing relaxation, other techniques, and blah, blah, blah. And then Alexander, what he did is that he found another study where they had 138 in 1972, about 6 years apart. Same POI was given to these students, but they were practicing TM, these students. Big difference, okay? Big difference. Here's the difference. Actually, the group, the 1966 group, it's negligible. It didn't make any difference, really, because here you have the effect size. Effect size below zero point 0.2, it's like, it's not significant. And look at the TM group, they had grown tremendously. So that's a measurement of enlightenment, in a sense, huh? Measurement of enlightenment. And then what he did is that he said, well, maybe it's because they did it more for a longer time, or is it something else that might have given this effect? Maybe they were going to better school or something because they were 6 years apart. So he had to correct for all of this. And then he came with this statistics that he found some studies that were done after 5 to 6 weeks of practice TM, 12 to 22 weeks, and 1 to 4 years. And you see the effect size after zero point 0.8, it's large. It's very, very significant. So after 12 weeks of practice, already the effect size of growth toward higher states of consciousness, of the qualities we saw before, was already large. And you see our student, the previous study I told you about the student and the high blood pressure, they had about, 4 months. So four months is about 16 weeks. So they were in this category. Already, they had more intuition, more capacity not to make mistakes, to be able to properly act and everything. So you can imagine after, you see, it goes from zero point 0.9 to 1.13, but this is not an absolute thing because effect size it goes this way, it's exponential. So it's probably here, if you go back there, you can see that it's TM is about 6, 7 times more effective to change anyway. So then not too long after that, it was in 2005, Chandler, another psychologist. What he did is um, they took 4 schools in the US, the university in the US, and then because these universities were using Lovinger mean ego development tool. It's also another way of measuring the growth of personality. It's pretty much attached to Maslow. Maslow was the first one, and then these other guys, they just made different ways of evaluating the same thing. Okay, so for university alumni, 10 years after they graduate from university, okay, 10 years after MUM, this university, they practice TM there all along their teaching. So 10 years after, 53% of the graduate achieve post-conventional level of ego development. Remember at the beginning, I told you Maslow said only 1%. Only 0.5% of population will do this. Now we have 53%. Have you seen that before? If you're the least, I mean, what else can we say, to say that this is a strong instrument to do this? And compared to other schools, other university, they had minor, negligible increase. Some weren't even went down. So remember this at the beginning when I said, 1%, half a percent of population will get that. And then after that, it stays the same or sometimes it regress. So this is exactly what it shows here. So then you can say, well, maybe MUM had some kind of a curriculum that was very special, and it's not TM that did that. This is something else, like the curriculum of MUM, because they had some kind of magical thing. Or just, I, I cannot imagine. But anyway, in science, you have to answer these questions. How come it's? Are you sure it's not something else? So Chandler was very wise. What he did is that he looked at other studies that were done about on uh, Harvard alumni and Mill College alumni, which is it was another college that anyway. You see, 38%. Now you're talking about the very, very top level of ego development, which is we think it's unity consciousness actually. 38% had that from MIU 10 years after. And Harvard, you see 10%, and then 8% Mill College. Well, then you can ask me, you can say, well, you told me it's only 1%. How come Harvard had 10%? It's because selection. Okay. Harvard is the best university in the world, probably. So they select their people so carefully that they pick the 1%, half percent, in order to make 10% at the end. But MUM takes anybody in. It's not, but they practice TM and get to the result they have. So it's kind of convincing. If you're not convinced, me, I am, because I kept going with my practice all the time, all this time. Anyway, so that's about psychology. That's about psychology. Do we have time? Oh, well, we're running out of time. No,
Just
not bad.
one quick clarification just for people is that MUM,
You
Maharishi University of Management, it did end up changing its name to Maharishi International University. So you'll see two different abbreviations for the same university, either MIU or MUM, and it is the same school, and all the students practice TM there. So just to make
Thank
sure
you. Yes,
everyone.
yes, you're right. But they changed and then they rechanged. They came back. They were MIU at the beginning. Then I think Maharishi decided MUM. And then recently they came back to MIU, Maharishi International University. It's more international. Look, this is what they are. They are very international. So that's it probably resound more with what they're doing. So after speaking about psychology, because some people can say psychology, it's a soft science. You measure quality, you ask people to answer questions, like the Maslow questionnaire is 150 questions, and then you have to analyze the answer and then grade the answer as, conventional or post-conventional and so on and so forth. Okay. So you can say some people in my field of medicine would say, well, it's nice, but it's soft, okay, because there is subjective. But I just to make a precision, I was also wondering about this, and I read about these tests, like the test of Stockholm, Stortrom, anyway, Shostrom test. She it's a she. And actually, before they make them official, these tests, they have to test them a lot, to see if they fit the reality. And actually, let's say, for example, you answer 150 questions, and you're supposed to answer from your own experience, not someone else's experience, or not one experience that you think might be best or better than yours, so that you can improve your score. Okay, you cheat on it. Okay, so what they do usually to check this is that they ask the people to answer the question according to their own experience only, very honestly, answer the questions. And then a couple of months after, they say, okay, your score was 85 or something like this, let's say. And then they tell the student, now I would like you to redo the questions, re-answer the question, but embellish them, make them best, just to see if it's gonna, because you can cheat, when you answer, you can moon make. So people start to moon make and answer the questions in order to embellish them. You know what happened? They usually get a lower score. It is so well done that if you answer this at this question and another one, the other, it's going to imbalance this and the score will not be proper. Anyway, I don't know how they figure this out, but I mean, it's quite well organized. The psychometric tests are not simple tests. They're not so soft. They're kind of objective. But anyway, more objective is neurophysiology, neuroscience. That's very objective. Mainly Dr. Fred Travis, professor of neuroscience at Maharishi International, MIU. Okay, he is an expert in EEG of transcending and TM and a lot of other things. But anyway, so that's all about his work, mostly, not only him, but mostly Dr. Travis. So when you close your eyes and you practice TM, something very, very unique happen. It's very natural. You don't make any effort. You don't even know that it's happening, but this is happening. If you put yourself on the EEG machine, you will see it. You see, just to explain to you what this is that when your eyes are open, you see this is EEG. These are the LEDs, the electrodes that are put on the brain. This is the front, the side of the brain, and then you go to the back of the brain. From the front to the back of the brain, you have electric activities. Usually there's about 32. But you see, when your eyes are open, it's all like this one. When you close your eyes, because the vision is at the back of the brain, if I close my eyes, then my vision part of the brain starts to rest because it doesn't see anything. My eyes are closed, so that's resting, idling, alpha. Here, this activity is called alpha. It's a restful activity of the brain, but only at the back when I close my eyes. Alpha activity, you never see that in front of the brain almost, very, very, it's not significant, alpha activity, anywhere else in the brain except at the back when you close your eyes. But when you practice TM, look what happened. This alpha activity is at the back, of course, because your eyes are open. But then this restful state spreads to the front of the brain completely, right and left and front and back, and everything is alpha. Okay, this is they call paradoxical alpha because normally it's not there in the front. It's a new state of consciousness. It describes transcendental consciousness. During transcending, your brain goes into this restful state, but also very symmetrical. Look how symmetrical. We call it coherent. It's coherent. Look, it's exactly the waves, they look exactly the same from the front to the back and the back and the front. And when the waves are the same, it's because they're communicating. It's the same. It's like connections. It measures the connections in the brain, the coherence, measure the connections. So, okay, so that's very unique to TM. But, and that's a very important slide here to understand, is that you see it's exactly what I showed you. This is the blue line. This is during TM. When you start TM the first few days and you close your eyes, you have some little bit of sometime disturbance. So the coherence, here it's the coherence. Coherence is increasing, But after 1 month, usually you're top. You are already an expert in TM. You don't need more. And you see, if you would take the EEG of a person practicing TM for 40 years like me, it's the same. It's always the same. Okay? You close your eyes, boom, it goes into full coherence in the brain. And it's what it shows here is that TM is not a difficult technique to learn, and it's not something that you need to improve, and then after 10 years of practice, you're better off because you've done it so much. And no, 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 no. After a month, you're an expert. So it's very easy to do. Okay, so that's what it shows. But the big difference is that when you open your eyes after TM, you go back to this thing here, okay? This kind of activity here, which is the wakeful activity of the brain, okay? But watch this. That was done by Travis aussi. After 2 months, it's not so quiet. I mean, it's not so active. Some alpha activity has creeped into your brain during activity, and then there'll be more, and then there'll be more after 12 months. So actually, the effect of TM is not during practice. You're not going to have big change in your practice. It's going to be the same. But it's in your life that everything will change. Is that when you open your eyes and you go into activity, then you have more of these intuition, you make less mistakes because your brain is just connecting more and then more and more and more until it's cosmic. Okay, cosmic brain, like we saw at the beginning. So that would happen when this line here goes up and up, and this it reaches this one. Okay, when the two meets, it is CC, cosmic consciousness. Usually, that's what considers cosmic consciousness. And if you ask me the question, because you would probably ask, how long does it take? It depends where you start. But I'll tell you, according to the student, because they were young and they start practicing fairly young, 5 to 8 years done. Okay, so you have your answer for that. But if you're 50 years old, maybe you have some washing to do in the brain before you get there, but it's still not very long. But you don't start living your life when you're in CC. The first day you start TM, you have change in your way of everything is more beautiful, everything is better, everything is more enjoyable. You don't need to wait 5 years. No, 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 no. It's tomorrow, the same almost. You see? So what happened is that how do we call this line here going up and trying to reach the perfect line of TM? It's brain integration. That's also a discovery of Dr. Travis, brain integration. So he looked at people with lots of practice of TM, like 10 years, 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, and he took them through Maslow exam and all of these other measurements. And what he found is that there is a correlation between brain integration and self-actualization. It's the same measurement, except that the measurement of brain integration is an objective measure on a machine. You can never moon make it or fake it or pretend it or nothing like this. This is it or it's not there. So this is brain integration is an objective scientific measurement. And what is nice about what Dr. Travis did is then when he had this tool of measuring the level of consciousness of a person, he went out with some other psychologist, and he found people in the world that had high brain integration without TM. So brain integration is not only a TM thing. It does happen spontaneously, but it's very rare, about 1% of population. So Do you remember Marshall? It's exact. They found about 1 or 2%. So this is it here. You see, they went to actually Scandinavia, Norway, I think. Anyway, they went to yeah, the Norwegian Olympic team, and they looked at the world-class athlete that they had won already gold medal or world champion or something like they took the best one, okay, the one with very big success, and they calculate their brain integration. And look at this, you see, brain integration compared to the same team, people, member of the same team with the same training, but they had not win any medal or something like that. So you take like a more a control athlete and a world-class athlete, and what you see, brain integration is more. And then they went even in the, I think it was still in Sweden, in Norway. They took the top managers, managers in some companies where these guys are paid about $2 million a year just to be the CEO. You wonder how they can earn such a salary, because there are some people that when you put them there, it works. And then if you put another guy there or another girl, it's not gonna work. So that's why they keep changing until they find one that company will succeed and thrive. Same thing, same kind of result. You see, top manager, control manager, more ordinary. You see, you have the conventional people, the ordinary, and the extraordinary. They're there. Ordinary, extraordinary, ordinary, extraordinary. And then long-term TM, 15, 20 years of practice of TM. Now I have no name for that. It's like it's extraordinary or something like this. Okay. So you see, it does improve over time. And there are people in the world that have already a very good brain. Okay. So it's not only about TM is not developing something out of this world. It is just making ordinary people into extraordinary people. That's all it does. It's not like, okay. So now you have this other just experience that Dr. Travis did. They taught to college students 10 weeks of TM. And then after that was just before their final exam or something like this. So anyway, 10 weeks of TM, but he did also his brain integration scale. It's in brain integration. You can calculate what it is. And then you see, after 10 weeks of practice of TM, these guys, the young student, they were higher than the top level manager, higher than the world-class athletes. And they were, of course, higher to the comparison athletes. I mean, this is something. When we say, you don't have to wait 5 years, it's tomorrow you'll be different. And then the day after tomorrow, and then the day after tomorrow. Now I'd like to give you an explanation, final explanation of why it's like that. I've been reading about this for a while now, the default mode network. Default mode network was discovered, um, I think it was in early 2000 or something like this, by a guy named Marcus Rakel. He's a neurologist from Washington University. I'm just going to summarize a little bit. The FOMO network, it's the part of the brain that gets activated when you do nothing. As soon as you do something, it goes in the back, in the back, and then the active part of the brain starts to kick in. Okay, if you stop doing anything, the FOMO network appears in front. Okay, so the FOMO network, I mean, you see it here on brain imaging. These are part of the brain that are midline. And they actually connect both part of the brain. And Dr. Rakel, he says that when he made this discovery, he was amazed because this guy had studied the brain for so long. And he said, we never realized that 80% of the energy of the brain, the 80% of the energy that consume the brain is nonstop, 24 hours, and it's all unconscious. It's not something conscious. And it contains the memory of the past, the possibility of envisioning the future, the um, the capacity of understanding others, and it's also some other thing I forgot, but anyway, this apparently this is all unconscious, unconscious, and it's like TM when I told you about the connection of the brain with alpha activity. Alpha activity during TM comes from the default network, comes from there. So it enliven this unconscious part that it's there within you, and apparently we use it unconsciously, but sometimes we make mistake because you use your activity brain too much. And I could go back and show you one of the characteristic of self-actualization is that there is a better connection between the intellect and the feeling and intellect. You'd be surprised. You think you are a rational person, and then when you decide to buy a car or buy a pair of pants or something like that, you're very rational. I'm sorry to say, but we're not rational people. We do make all our decisions on the basis first of a feeling, and then we rationalize it. Okay, you want to buy a car, but eventually, you were exposed to other different models and everything, and then you have a feeling of what you would like. It's not rational. It's an intuition. So I intuition and feeling, they come from the DMN, the default network, and that's actually, you have to understand that you see Maslow in 1966, I think, he said people with higher states of consciousness, they live through feeling and intuition. Okay, but nobody knew how to get that to go for this bunch of knowledge that is there. It's also, yeah, I forgot to tell you, the DMN is also your memory of the past. Memory, it's all what you've collected as information. Very often it's deep there, and then we don't go back necessarily there before we make a decision. But when you practice TM, you have access to this more. So you stop making mistake. Maharishi would call it acting in accord with natural law, acting in accord with the cosmos, because now you've tapped into this big part of the brain that is usually unconscious. So this is it. You bring the objective and subjective part of the brain together. And this is very objective because that was measured by Fred Travis, that the alpha activity during TM comes from and they say it creates this asynchrony of the brain and its experience of the big self instead of the small self. Yes, that's it. So practically speaking, in life, what it does, you win everything. You're the best in what you want to do. And you realize your desire. So why live an ordinary life when you can have an extraordinary life? That's the big question. Okay, so that's a school in the US also. It's attached to MIU. They have state record, broke every record possible in creativity and sport, and you just name it. They're just good at the best, not good, they're best at doing all of this. World record, everything like this. So much so that that's my last slide. It's a citation from Maharishi, and now you will understand the citation. You will understand it. Every human being is like a multimillionaire. unconsciously has forgotten his wealth and status and goes on the street begging for a few penny and looking after your daily bread and stuff like this instead of living fully life. Okay, so this is my message. Thank you very much. Hopefully, any questions or I'll stop the sharing.
Thank you, Dr. Gagné, for going through all of that for us. And this knowledge of transcendental meditation and the technique, this all comes from the Vedic tradition of India, and it's knowledge that's been passed down for thousands of years. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was the one who brought TM out of India and started sharing it around the world. So it's his teachings that we refer to, since he was the one who spread it all around the world for us. And so when he was going around the world and sharing all of this knowledge, he wanted to talk about and share this knowledge about this full potential of the human being, both mentally and expanding our enjoyment and happiness in life. And he talked about how life is bliss, life is happiness. And people would say, okay, well, you say life is bliss, but I'm seeing not a lot of bliss out there. I'm seeing, unhappiness and suffering and all these issues that people are dealing with. So, Marishi, how could you say that life is bliss? And he talked about how that inner experience of happiness and bliss is always there within us. And we talk about how TM settles the mind down to this level of pure awareness, pure intelligence, pure happiness that's always deep within us. And the reason why we don't experience it all the time, why are we not in a state of enlightenment and happiness all the time, is because our physiology, there's stress in the physiology and it can't maintain that state. And so what TM also does is, yes, it expands our mental potential and all these things, but also TM gives the body really deep rest. And that deep rest allows the body to normalize itself and to be able to maintain this experience more and more and more as we continue to practice. So TM is truly this incredible tool to help us expand towards these higher values. And it's incredible that science has now gotten to the point where we can actually measure this, both in the brain, in psychology, and all these wonderful tools to actually understand what the science of enlightenment is, and this happiness and this state of enjoyment that we would all love to have. And so transcendental meditation is this incredible tool that really can help us get there. So if anyone has any questions, we have a few minutes before we close. If anyone wants to ask any questions to either Dr. Gagné or myself. And for those of you who are interested in learning more about transcendental meditation, then you can attend one of our free discovery sessions, or we also call them preparatory sessions. And there's a link in the chat. You can join some with me directly, or if those times don't work for you, you can find a teacher that is near to you locally, wherever you happen to be located. And that way you can connect with a teacher and find more about the steps of the course, how to learn TM, a little bit more about the how it works as well. We didn't go so much into the details of the practice today, more the effects that it has over time. Let me just take a peek in the chat. Okay, so no questions coming in so far. I wanted to mention too that, we're talking about this growth towards higher values and higher states of consciousness, and how, this growth happens over time, as Dr. Gagné showed wonderfully in these studies. And, it's something that's cumulative as we continue this practice, that expansion of the self and enjoyment and mental clarity comes in over time as the brain becomes more coherent and we gain more of our mental potential, and then that enjoyment that comes as well as our activity, when our activity becomes more enjoyable as a result of that. Let's see. Someone's asking, should I take the discovery session since I already learned TM? No, you don't have to. That is for people to understand more about how to learn TM and the steps that are involved in that process. So if you've already learned TM, then you don't have to attend one of those discovery sessions. Unless you want to, for whatever reason, you're also welcome to join those if you're interested, of course. Those of you who already practice transcendental meditation, if you have any other questions, you can always refer to your own TM teacher or your local center as well. One question came in, is it similar to Buddhist teachings? That's a wonderful question. Dr. Gagné, did you want to take that or did you want me to
Can
answer
you
that?
repeat the question?
Is it similar to Buddhist teachings?
Uh, no, as we said at the beginning, Buddhist is more like, if I remember well, it's a observation. It's like open monitoring technique. It's the Buddhists, what they use is that you have to put your attention on, it's like mindfulness is from Buddhist also. It is then your attention is outward. You put yourself into observation situation whereas with the TM you go deep inside. You just don't put your attention on the thoughts and the waves and everything. It's like you see, Asia explained to us there are waves on top of the ocean. This is our all our thoughts. When you practice a Buddhist tradition, like Vipassana also is that you put your attention on a wave. You just watch the wave, or not one wave, but the whole thing. You watch them go past, here and there. If you use a Chinese tradition, it's like more concentration, like even Japanese Zen. You put your attention on one wave. With the Buddhists, you put your attention on all the wave. It's like contemplation. It is not without benefit. Stress is released, but I'll tell you, frankly, it was measured scientifically. TM is about 2 to 3 times more powerful for releasing stress than any other of these technique, Buddhist or 2.5. It's more powerful. It's not like they don't do anything, but I mean, for the time span, you don't have the same kind of amount of results. And then watch this one for improving self-actualization, improving your capacity to have better intuition, not making mistake, being more happy, more successful, and all of this that I've just explained. TM is 5 to 6 times more powerful than other technique. It doesn't mean that other techniques are useless. If you practice them, it's okay if you feel some benefit from it. It's not dangerous for sure, but it's not as effective.
Yeah.
And as Asia explained, stress is the first obstacle to improving your self-actualization, your personality, and everything. Stress has to get out first. You get rid of the stress, then you keep evolving more quickly. So TM is already 2, 3 times more powerful to relieve stress. Mm.
And another point too is that, in terms of the teachings and talking about things like enlightenment and self-realization, many different traditions have this, they talk about these experiences of enlightenment, self-realization. And so it is true that Buddhist teachings talk about these higher states, and people want to reach these higher values and experiences. What can happen is that we have these people talk about these experiences of enlightenment, higher states of consciousness, but oftentimes, um, in terms of how to get there, they talk in terms of effort, of, you have to try and separate yourself from reality, or disconnect yourself from having like material things, or trying to maintain some inner quietness throughout the day. There's all these practices that that people will bring in and talk about to try and reach these higher values. But when Maharishi Mahesh Yogi started bringing his teachings out, he was like, we don't need to make any effort. We don't have to do these things that take all this work and effort and throughout the day. Basically, it's just this one technique, this effortless technique to go within, locate that infinite value, and also release the stress that's blocking that experience all the time. And so, through this very simple, natural, and effortless technique, then that experience can come in more and more quickly rather than having to make effort throughout the day of trying to maintain a certain experience or making an effort to move ourselves in this direction. Actually, the only effort needed is to sit down and close the eyes for 20 minutes twice a day.
Yeah,
So,
you, you're very right, Aisha. Actually, these other techniques sometimes they are exhausting because it's too much to do. And then there is some report saying that for some people that are already fragile, it can actually not be pleasant at all. Anyway, somebody is asking, when do you usually start noticing a difference after a week, a month, or maybe three? Do you want to answer, Asia, or because it's a
sure.
common question?
Yes. So basically, it does depend on the person. We all have different physiologies. We all have different amounts of stress that we're carrying around with us. What the research shows, a lot of the research, they do follow up after around 4 to 6 weeks is when a lot of these studies come in and they do follow up to see, okay, how are these people doing? What are the effects so far? So, because of that, a lot of our research says around 4 to 6 weeks, we see these really good benefits starting to come in on average. However, there is a couple studies, and one in particular, which I love to share, that was on healthcare workers, and they did follow up after 2 weeks because it was during the pandemic. They did not have a lot of time, so they said, you better come back in 2 weeks to tell us what's up. So they came back after 2 weeks, and there was a significant effect in that 2 week period. Lower levels of stress and anxiety, their sleep improved. And so we really love that study as well because we don't often have follow up after 2 weeks, but it really does show what I see in my students in that after the first few weeks, they really start to notice some difference. For some, it might take a little bit more time. Others, it might be more of a dramatic change that they experience more quickly. Others, it's a slow cumulative experience that builds over a month or two. And so it really does depend on the person, but we see in terms of the research and the body and the mind that there are changes happening in the brain and in the body when people learn this technique, even within the first couple of months. So that was a
Yeah, I would
wonderful
say
question.
there is a change, measurable change almost immediately, but sometimes you don't feel it first,
Yeah,
and then you have to do it a little bit because we're still working on the unconscious part a little bit sometimes. Somebody is
right.
saying, I am 50 year meditator, but I remember my first teaching and my stress release was palpable, and I felt my stress leaving me right away. And this was my experience also 40 years ago. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
There is another question.
Oh, yes. As a long-term meditator, what happens as one grows older and the
Yeah,
physiology gets weaker? Is there anything we can do to maintain our level of awareness? Dr. Gagné, do you want to take that one?
yeah. I think just make sure you are still very regular with your practice, and also sometime with age, digestion is not as good as it used to be, so it's very important to have a regular diet with not too heavy, in the evening or something. See how your sleep is and try to correct all other little change like difficult digestion or difficulty to sleep, and it will recover. You will maintain the awareness. I think the secret is still be very regular in the
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, that
Maybe
regular.
also there are some advanced technique
Mhm.
could help because sometimes we have the experience, but we're not so aware of it. So with the advanced technique of TM, maybe if you go to Asia for another for a meeting, she will explain advanced technique. It helps the process of transcending being more conscious. You realize exactly what is happening. It's like the leaf coming off of a tree or something like this. So maybe could help. Never harm to do this.
Yeah, that regularity of meditation really helps to maintain that awareness as well. So that's a great point. And then the last question I'll take is someone asking that they live a little ways away from a center. Are there classes available online or by Zoom? So we don't have fully online courses to learn TM, but we do, depending on the center, oftentimes we'll be able to offer a hybrid version of the course. So you would still have to come in person for the first day of the course to gain your instruction in person, one-on-one with a teacher, but then the following 3 days could be done over Zoom, and you would be watching content through our TM app, which you could download onto your smartphone and watch some content on your own time, and then meet each day with your teacher for the course. So there is that option. So reach out to your center, whatever that closest one is, and see if there's that opportunity to learn through the hybrid course. So that is our time for today. We went a couple minutes over. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. So if you want to learn more about TM, we really recommend attending one of our free sessions, either yes, Nuar just put it in the chat. So I have a couple coming up that you can join if you want to do it with me. If the dates don't work for you, then you can connect with a local center, with a teacher near you, and attend a session with them as well. And so we look forward to hearing from you, and I hope to see you at one of my discovery sessions. So thank you so much, Dr. Gagné, for joining us
Thank
today
you.
and going through all this wonderful scientific research. So great to know that this exists and that it's out there. And we hope to connect with you all very soon. So enjoy the rest of your day. All the
Thank
best,
you.
everyone.
Enjoy. Bye.